Alright, hey guys, it's Key here. We've got your questions here about Loki service nodes. Simon did one of these earlier just on Loki General, but we wanted to bring this in specifically for Loki service nodes. So I'll start off with the first one. I need an introduction video about how to run a Loki service node. I have more than 45,000 Loki, but do not know how to set it up. Okay, cool. So we set up a bunch of videos before on how to set up a service node. So there's one on our YouTube channel called Loki Service Node Testnet, and that will help you get a service node set up on mainnet too. But there's also a full written guide. It's like, 15 pages long, goes through everything you need to know. And we'll link both of those in the description below, so you should be able to set one up after that. It's not too complicated, the process. And like most people who even don't know anything about Linux can get started. How involved is operating a service node? So at the moment, operating a service node isn't too tricky. It will become more and more tricky as we go on and we add more features to the Loki service node set. The main reason why it's pretty easy at the moment is because service nodes really only share blocks with other service nodes, and they also send uptime proofs to the network. So there isn't too much involved. The main thing at the moment is like having a computer that's on all of the time and is able to be connected to the internet the whole time, and that won't go down for more than a 2-hour stretch in one period of time. So those are the main things. You don't need to be a genius to set up a service node at the moment, but moving into the future, there will be a higher requirement on service nodes. So we'll see stuff that like keeping a certain amount of bandwidth available, having a certain amount of storage size available, having a certain amount of compute power available to your server. These will all become things that you'll need to be conscious of as we go into 2019 kind of area, and we'll signal those to you as well when we need people to upgrade their servers or if they're not meeting the requirements. Why the block reward split? So the reason we changed the block reward split when service nodes came out was because we needed a way to incentivize service nodes to operate. So what originally was the case was that 95% of the reward went directly to miners and then 5% to the Loki Foundation. So that was the original case when Loki came out. Just recently, we have changed the formula to be 50% goes directly to service nodes, and now 45% to the miners and 5% to the Loki Foundation. And the reason we did that is because we want to fairly incentivize Loki service nodes. They're a big part of the network, and they'll be becoming an even bigger part of the network in the future. So we wanted to appropriately incentivize them, and that means taking some of the block reward and giving it directly to service nodes. So that's why we changed the split just recently. What can a service node do? So again, this is a question that's like service nodes now and service nodes in the future. So service nodes right now don't do a whole lot. Really, they share blocks with each other, so they share blocks with their peers. As a miner, creates a block, gets shared around to the network, and service nodes share that amongst each other. They also can be remote nodes. They're not forced to be remote nodes at the moment. And the other big task that they do is they send uptime proofs. So that doesn't really help the network in any way, but it makes it so that we can actually keep control of which service nodes are online and which service nodes aren't. So essentially what a service node does is it sends a ping to the network. It's similar to a ping. It doesn't use ICMP, but it uses the peer-to-peer protocol on Loki to send a proof, a signed message to the rest of the network, which says, hey, I'm alive and I'm online at this point in time. And then all of the other service nodes look at that and they say, okay, I know this guy's online. And when testing happens, so testing happens every single block, there's a group of nodes that come together and they decide which nodes on the network have either gone up or are up at the moment, or they're offline. And the uptime proof is the part we use to prove or deregister or keep one of the nodes online after that. If we ever do hit the maximum amount of service nodes available, how would people already running nodes be guaranteed another 30-day staking contract? So I think this question maybe misunderstands how the Loki staking protocol works. So if we really did have all of the service nodes staking, that would mean 100% of the Loki cryptocurrency is just entirely locked up. It's a very unrealistic scenario for that to happen. Even in the most long-living masternode cryptocurrencies, you really typically only see upwards of 50 to 60% locked up. So to see 100% of the supply locked up would just be probably ridiculous. In that scenario where there was 100% locked up though, you wouldn't be able to register a new node, but as nodes got deregistered, then there would be currency that was unlocked, and that currency could be staked again. But if it's 100% of the supply is locked, then you can't actually buy any of the supply to stake a new node. So yeah, I hope I answered that question correctly. Jump in the comments if that was your question, and maybe you can clarify it and I can give you a better answer there. Is there any way to get information about a server only by knowing the service node key? So I'm assuming they're referring to the service node pub key here, which is the part of the service node which kind of identifies each service node as being separate. So if I gave you my service node pub key, what can you find out about the server? So it really depends. Like if you're a technically savvy person, from the service node pub key, you could find out the IP address of the server, but that would require a little bit of hacking in the client software. If I gave you my service node pub key, you could take it to Loki blocks, for example, and plug it in, and you could see the addresses that contributed to that stake. You could see if it was a shared or an open pool, and you could see how long it was going to take to deregister. So all of that information is available on Loki blocks. I guess this might be concerning to some people, but really Loki was never built to maintain the anonymity of service node operators. It was always built to maintain the anonymity of users. So this will be the case ongoing, forever. Service node operators give up a certain amount of their privacy to serve the network, and in return for that, they get a reward. Users in this scenario are the ones we want to protect. And this is the same case with, Tor and all of these other anonymity services out there. Usually you have the relays being the non-private part, so anyone can see the relays. They need to know where the relays are so they can make routes through them. And that's the same case in Loki. So if you give someone your service node pub key, they can probably find a bit of information about you, but there's no way to actually obfuscate that without creating a bad experience for the users. How many service nodes do we expect to grow in the next few years? Generally, what we're doing with Loki is we're starting at a higher staking requirement. So the staking requirement when we start is 45,000 Loki, and that progressively decreases over time. The other thing that happens is also the circulating supply available to stake in Loki service nodes also increases over time. So as we go on in time, there's two forces acting in the same direction, which is that there'll be more service nodes. And that will happen, over the next 1 or 2 years. We have projected targets, so I think by the end of Loki's circulating supply, and there isn't really an end, but when it hits its asymptote of when there's a fixed block reward and no longer decreasing, I think we're aiming for about 4,000 nodes at that point. But it's all speculation at this point. We really don't know how many nodes there is going to be. We've designed it so that it can support a lot more nodes than there currently are, but you really can't predict these things, and we'll see where it goes. But I would definitely say I think there's going to be more nodes in the future rather than less. Is there interest from existing applications or services to port them to Loki? So we haven't talked specifically to any application developers yet. But the way LokiNet is built is it's very easy to integrate any existing application. So the way most internet services work is that they talk to the internet. There's an application running on a server, and that speaks directly to the internet. All you really need to do as an application developer, if you're wanting to run something on LokiNet, is you just need to run a proxy. So it intercepts the web service call that would communicate directly to the internet, and what it does is it runs it through LokiNet instead. So that's what we would typically refer to as a snap. So that would be something that was hosted inside of LokiNet itself. So you've seen Facebook come along and do similar things actually with Tor. So Facebook runs a hidden service inside of the Tor network, which is like the full Facebook suite. So any Tor users can go to Facebook that's internally hosted. So we hope that application developers will find the LokiNet interface really easy, actually probably easier than Tor, because you don't need to screw around with TCP/IP packets. You can just directly use the proxy that we're providing. So yeah, we hope application developers will come over, and there'll be a lot more of a push towards applications switching over to be snaps when that technology is working and ready for them to go, which should be within the coming months and coming year. We should see huge progress on that front. So yeah, that's how I guess I'd answer that question. When is LokiNet released in general? So that's a hard question to answer without putting direct dates on it. I would say that definitely we will have something before the middle of next year. So we'll have a client version operational, and potentially it's going to be a lot earlier than that as well. LokiNet development has been going very fast, a lot faster than we expected. I think we got the right people and we got them at the right time. But yeah, it's also a difficult question to ask because it depends on what state LokiNet is in at that point in time as well. Like, we could release something now, and there is an alpha release of LokiNet right now, but it's probably less functional than what a normal person would perceive or want to interact with. So it really depends on what state it is. I think we'll have something similar to Tor, where it's like very usable for an end user and they don't need to understand the complexities behind it. Definitely before the middle of next year, and hopefully a lot before that. Current hash of proof of work is not so big. From the security point of view, I think it is meaningful to shift to 100% proof of stake like Ethereum in the future. How is the team thinking? Yeah, so proof of stake is something that I've been looking at a lot. So we're actually writing a paper at the moment about proof of stake. And that will probably be released in the coming months as we, find more and more about proof of stake. There is a lot of questions that are still kind of answered in a bunch of implementations, but we've basically got to choose the one that's right for us. So proof of stake has like a lot of historical problems, like the nothing at stake problem, the long range attack, things that have solutions, but they also have trade-offs as well. So the paper we're writing right now is trying to kind of explore what the best route to go on proof of stake is, and we'll have kind of more updates in the future. But it's something that I definitely think is important. But the thing is, our community started a lot from miners, and we still really value the miners in our community. So we want to make sure that everyone is happy if we are to move to proof of stake. So how we're going to do things moving forward when we propose major changes to the Loki protocol is we're going to put them out there in front of the community. So you will get to have your say if you're a miner or you want us to move to proof of stake. You will get to have a say in what the direction of Loki is going forward. We don't want to just push a change and alienate the community. So we'll have a lot of discussion before that paper goes out. So it's nothing to be nervous about. We're not just going to come up tomorrow and say we're switching to proof of stake, essentially. But it is on the roadmap. We are thinking about it, and we want to make a proposal to the community probably within the next 3 to 6 months. We'll see how it comes along. When will Blink service start? So for those of you who don't know, Blink is it's a version of instant send, like in Dash, where you can instantly send some cryptocurrency. This is something that we want to do, and we want to develop in Loki as well. So the idea is I use the service node network to lock up some key images, or they put a lock on key images so I can send something and it can be instantly confirmed without me having to mine it, or without someone having to mine it into the blockchain and await a number of confirmations. So Blink we're looking at starting on Blink very soon. It has gone to the back on a lot of the other features that we've been developing. The service node stuff's been really important to get that infrastructure in first, because without the service node stuff, we can't really do Blink. And then there's also swarms that are coming along, so that'll probably have to come before Blink. But we are still looking at Blink as an important feature, and as we hire more and more developers, I think it's going to become the role of one of those developers to work exclusively on Blink. And it's something that I'm super excited for as well. So I can't give an exact time frame for that, but Blink is looking to be one of the more important features of Loki, and I think we'll try and get it out as soon as possible, essentially. How long do you estimate that the current requirements for a VPS will remain the same? Thanks. That's difficult to say. It depends on what our release schedule is like. So we have got some releases planned for kind of early to mid next year, and those will potentially be the releases where we actually start enforcing more aggressive testing. Stuff like bandwidth requirements and path building tests will start being seen more and more. It will also depend when Loki Messenger comes out and when we actually start putting traffic through the network as well. The cool thing is that as the service node requirements change, that probably means we're also releasing products because we're actually starting to use the service nodes. So these things kind of go hand in hand, basically. How do I get my Linux node to automatically relaunch Loki and the Loki wallet client when it randomly gets reset? Cool. So there's actually a guide up on the Loki docs, repo right now, which tells you how to run LokiD as a system service. So that means if your VPS actually shuts down unexpectedly, then it will automatically reboot the LokiD service for you. That guide I'll link in the description below. And you should also check out Loki Docs, which is our documentation hub now, which has lots of links and lots of useful stuff for service node operators too. I want to develop applications that make use of Loki service nodes. When and how will I get started? So this is mainly contingent on LokiNet. So LokiNet will be the anonymous routing layer on top of service nodes. And we expect to see a LokiNet release available probably within the coming 3 to 6 months. It depends on what level LokiNet is at that point, but we should be starting to see snaps coming online probably sooner than we expect, I think. And that'll be good because anyone can set up their own snap. It's not too hard. You basically just need to know how to run a web service, and you can use a proxy to get LokiNet working with your web service. So it doesn't require any custom code knowledge. You don't need to know a special programming language that we're developing. You can just use your basic web-based languages, and you basically just run a proxy which feeds it into LokiNet, and then anyone can access your service. So we should be seeing things on that front very soon. And I hope to be running some Loki snaps as well alongside of you. Is a Loki service node the same thing as a router on the LARP testnet? So there's a couple of terms here that people who haven't been around Loki for a while might not understand. LARP stands for Low Latency Anonymity Routing Protocol. So LARP is kind of the basis of LokiNet. It's the name of the protocol that LokiNet uses to operate, essentially. So are they the same thing? Not really. A LARP testnet router doesn't require any stake to run. So you don't need 45,000 Loki or whatever the staking requirement is at the moment, 42,000 Loki to run a LARP testnet router. Basically, when they are fully integrated, there won't be that much difference between a LokiNet router and a service node. They will be essentially the same thing. You need to run a service node to run a router, and you also need to run the router to run the service node as well. So they will become the same thing eventually. They are separated at the moment because for testing purposes, it's way easier to keep them apart. We wouldn't want every single testnet router, for example, while we're doing tests that might break things, to have a 45,000 Loki stake in it. So the answer is not right now, but they will be integrated in the future. When be integrated with LokiNet to beat the low Tor? Okay, I guess that's when will LokiNet be better than Tor, maybe? The answer is we don't know. We're building LokiNet with a very strong architecture, and we're building it to have some significant architectural advantages over Tor. We hope that eventually people will start using LokiNet instead of Tor. It's very hard to predict whether that will happen or not. But we're building it in a way in which it can be, and it has advantages over Tor. So the answer really is it'll take some time, and we'll see. But we have the best developers. We have a really good architecture plan, and yeah, I think things are looking really good on that front. All right, thanks guys for your questions. If you have any more, either put them in the YouTube comments or come to our Discord or our Telegram. There's always admins roving around, and they'll be able to answer your questions, or maybe you'll bump into me, Simon, Josh, who will be able to answer your questions as well. So thanks for listening.